Hey, welcome back to my monthly movie ranking series, where I rank every new movie I saw each month that I haven't previously talked about on this channel. I watched 11 new movies in March, and I intend to talk about each one. As always, please take everything I say with a grain of salt, and don't take anything too seriously. These are just my opinions. Oh yeah, I should also mention that I saw Pride and Prejudice 2002 last month, but I cannot for the life of me tell you what happened because it's really just not for me, so I won't be including it in the ranking. And so without further ado...
Participation Award.
Zootopia 2 is not much more than an obligation to make a Zootopia sequel. It has maybe 4 or 5% of its predecessor's depth and nuance to add to the animated landscape. Disney said, oh, this movie is still talked about to this day, a sequel to it will make money. So to explain why this movie isn't good, I kinda have to explain why the original is good. It's a beautifully dark story about the dangers of prejudice and stereotyping in the modern, and even past, world. Judy and Nick are both insanely complete mirrors of each other, who both choose to react to the stereotypes associated with them in opposite ways. Judy wants to defy them and prove that rabbits can do big things, while Nick wants to exploit them and use them for his own personal gain. And Judy learns that that won't always work, and that there will always be hateful people out there, but you can still be a shining beacon of hope for those oppressed by prejudice. It's also extremely funny and has a lot of fantastic charm to it. Do you think that this movie is just as moving and powerful as the film I just described? It's not. Half the jokes in this movie are just recycled from the first film. Like, remember Judy's annoying neighbors? Here they are again, but not really that funny anymore. You remember the Godfather parody Arctic Shrews? Here they are again, but not really that funny anymore. They say a joke is never funny the second time you hear it, and nowhere is that more true than in sequels like these. These new jokes they have here mostly consist of animal puns. Even though the first movie was about why stereotypes are harmful, everyone still uses them in this movie to make jokes. Even one of the main characters who was literally a victim of said stereotypes. Nick is the comic relief character in this movie for some reason, and that's pretty much all he adds. I swear, I can't remember a single joke he made that wasn't an animal pun. Like, look at the new Beaver Lady character. Her name is Nibbles Maplesteak, and she talks in a southern redneck accent. She looks like how other animals would offensively stereotype beavers in the first movie. The animation is good, but the characters move around way too much, and the action is okay, I suppose. The new characters are mostly boring, except for the Lynx who pretends to betray his family, who actually makes the third act and climax somewhat enjoyable. Like, yeah, I'd heard he was a twist villain beforehand, but otherwise I did not see that coming. Patrick Warburton plays the new mayor, and oh, who am I kidding, he's Patrick Warburton, he's funny in anything. The new story about how snakes founded Zootopia or whatever is fine, I don't know. Overall, just another product of the times over at Disney Incorporated.
Use magic. Magic?
I did not care for The Prestige. Pretty interesting idea, but not really my thing. Definitely on the worst side for Christopher Nolan, but I didn't hate it. The reveal at the end really does make it all worth it, but I'm not a big fan of Hugh Jackman running around obsessing over how Christian Bale does his tricks. Like, it's not that deep, bruh, and makes for some underwhelming screen time. The actors are kinda stiff in this movie, honestly, especially Michael Caine. I'd only seen him in the Dark Knight trilogy and the Muppets Christmas Carol before this, and he gave an infinitely better performance in the Muppets Christmas Carol. Obviously, he doesn't have a huge range of emotions as Alfred in the Dark Knight, but I feel like he was at least a little better in that. Hugh Jackman is not convincing me that he's someone other than his character from The Greatest Showman. The rest of this cast doesn't fare much better. There was one performance I really liked, and that's Christian Bale's. He's fantastic and brings a lot of emotion to the role. I especially like the part where his wife asks him if he loves her, and he says, no, not today, as a callback to a joke his wife made about how she feels like he only loves her some days, and then it makes the reveal at the end so much cooler. Also, I forgot how much I dislike the visual identity movies give 1800s era London. There are so many movies based in this setting, and it wasn't even really that cool the first time, so yeah, I'm sick of this. Give me retro-futuristic communist Russia more movies. Sorry I'm talking about the setting so long, it's just infinitely more interesting to me than actually talking about The Prestige 2006.
You're getting married.
I'm not the biggest fan of The Princess Bride. Okay, I get it. I have an unpopular opinion. Granted, this movie is pretty funny, but it feels like it can't decide whether to be funny or serious. Half the time is spent on the humor, and the other half on these two generic fantasy lover characters who get separated and then reunited. There are these three pretty hilarious bounty hunter characters, two of which are played by Wallace Shawn and Andre the Giant, and they're pretty good whenever they appear. But then Wallace Shawn dies halfway through the movie. Like, they do this whole storm the castle sequence at the end of the movie, and Andre the Giant and the other guy are there, but Wallace Shawn would have been so funny in this situation. Why couldn't you have at least brought him back from the dead, only to reveal that he too was immune to that poison, and then get accidentally stabbed and killed by one of the castle guards? I'm sorry, I went on a tangent there. I just thought of that joke and wanted to share it. I do like the 80s family-friendly fantasy movie vibes this movie has, and like I said, there were quite a few funny bits, but the part of the movie we're supposed to take seriously is just really boring to me. Like, these two characters love each other, and we're supposed to root for them to get together, but the man is just kind of a generic male fantasy hero character, and the woman is just kind of a generic love interest character for the male fantasy hero. Although the king who wants to marry the woman looks and sounds just like Lord Farquaad, so that was funny. This is the kind of movie that your mom will say, "We have Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail at home," about after you ask her if you can buy Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail. Because that movie knows exactly what it is and what it wants to be. I wouldn't say The Princess Bride doesn't know what it wants to be, but there is a little bit of indecision involved.
I like it when they do the thing with the puppet.
The Muppets 2011 sure is a Muppet movie. It has all the Muppets, so it's obviously pretty funny, and I think the story about Muppets splitting up and then having to get back together is pretty ingenious. The puppetry is amazing as always. I can't believe how alive these characters look, but I can't help but kinda not love this movie. Don't get me wrong, it's a 7 out of 10 to me, but my biggest problem with it is that the emotional core between these two brothers is so thoroughly dumbed down. It feels like the movie has to tell us everything we're supposed to feel without just letting it happen. It's still a half-decent emotional core, but I don't really think that's the focus of this movie. It's the humor. Yeah, since the Muppets are all in this, it's hilarious. Every single character in this franchise cracks me up, no matter what they're in. The villain is pretty threatening, and I love how he wants to replace the Muppets with meaner, more cynical versions of themselves, when only 4 years later, the Muppets made a sitcom that was accused of being too mean and cynical. By the way, I watched a few episodes of that show, and it's not too bad, considering its reputation. Oh yeah, the songs. They're all pretty much great, especially Man or Muppet. That might actually be one of my favorite songs in any musical I've ever seen, mostly because I don't watch a lot of musicals. Also, the old white villain character rapping is something I thought I would never see in a Muppet movie. It's so out of place and pocket, and it's hilarious. And the climax where they kidnap Jack Black, who was formerly Animal's anger management counselor, because they needed a celebrity host, is maybe the funniest thing the Muppets have ever done. Like I said, the emotional core wasn't really for me, and Jason Segel's girlfriend, Amy Adams, only exists to create tension between him and Walter, but I would watch this movie again. It's a pretty good entry into the consistently great Muppets canon. Diary of a Wimpy Kid Dog Days is almost as funny as Roderick Rules. Even though the first and second Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies were adaptations of the books they shared names with, this one is actually a joint adaptation of Dog Days and The Last Straw, the third and fourth books in the series. And I'd say they did about as good a job as they could. The story isn't the greatest, but I really like the characters in these movies, and especially the actors playing them. Zachary Gordon, Robert Capron, Steve Zahn, Rachel Harris, and Devin Bostic. Oh, Devin Bostic. We have said it before, and we will say it again. Devin Bostic is perfect in this role. I mean, Roderick is still the main character of this franchise to me, so he totally should have gotten more screen time. But what we did get of him in this movie was fantastic. Every line delivery, every little movement just drips with top-tier exaggerated swagger, which is just too funny to us Wimpy Kid fans. The only new thing he brings to the table in this movie is that he has a crush on Heather Hills, which, paired with his arrogant and overconfident personality, is hysterical. Most of the other characters are great too, Rowley and Frank especially. I love pretty much every scene at Rowley's country club, and Steve Zahn really gives it his all comedically whenever he's on screen. I think the story about Greg wanting to get out of going to the military academy because his dad is forcing him makes for some pretty fun hijinks. And even though the emotional core was pretty much non-existent, I still like when the two of them learn to get along in the end. It's mildly wholesome. However, there is one aspect of the plot I genuinely do not like, and that's everything with Holly Hills. I mean, she wasn't a great character in Roderick Rules, but she kind of has that generic movie crush syndrome where she acts exactly as Greg sees her. Like, friendly, but completely aloof and oblivious to the fact that the main character likes her and kind of just exists as that. I guess there's a little more connection in this movie than in Roderick Rules, since you also have her older sister, but she's also a one-dimensional character, so that kind of sucks. But we did get Roderick singing Justin Bieber's Baby to impress her at the end, which is like in the top 3 best Roderick moments in the entire series, so I guess her inclusion was worth it.
Stop swimming around in your own mind. That is a dangerous neighborhood that you should not go into alone.
Inside Out is not as good as I remember. I talked about this movie once a long time ago on my original Pixar ranking, but I didn't rewatch anything for that video, and I didn't really know what made a movie good, so I wasn't really qualified to talk about it. It could be that I've overwatched this movie, but it's just not that amazing and powerful film I was expecting when I rewatched it. It has great characters, and the comedy might be my favorite in any Pixar movie. Well, aside from that one scene in Hoppers, but believe me, we'll get to that. This one has some of the greatest voice acting performances, writing, and casting I've ever seen in a Pixar movie related to comedy. I mean, come on. Lewis Black as Anger? Who comes up with this stuff? I do still stand by my statement from the original Pixar ranking that he and Fear are the perfect matchup for comedy, and that Joy and Sadness are almost as good. I really like Bing Bong and how he represents Riley growing up, and Joy's arc about learning to accept all emotions because they all help is okay, but sometimes the movie is really on the nose about it, like obnoxiously so. The best point in this story arc is when Bing Bong is sad and Joy tries to cheer him up by trying to make him laugh, but it doesn't work. And then Sadness sits down and just talks to him and sympathizes with him, and it genuinely cheers him up afterwards. Now that is a great showcase of the movie's themes. Same thing with the climax, where Bing Bong sacrifices himself to get Joy to headquarters because he cares that deeply about making Riley happy again. The animation is obviously amazing, and I really think the visual aesthetic and world building of this movie are pretty cool. But yeah, this is a great movie, but there are quite a few flaws. But you could say that the dark spots make the light even brighter.
It is all good.
Much like how Zootopia 2 is just another product of the times at Disney Animation, GOAT is just another product of the times at Sony Animation. This might be the only movie I've ever seen that makes the modern world look cool. All the locations in the main jungle city almost look like locations in the game Stray, which is wonderful. The animation is so fluid and vibrant with tons of expressive characters and textures. This movie's animation and the way the camera follows the action in the basketball game scenes almost makes me want to take up basketball. Do you know how insanely good a sports movie has to be to make me want to play sports? The story is... Wait, does this movie even need one? I don't know. Have you ever seen a sports underdog movie before? Yeah, it's that, except with animals, and honestly way more fun and likable characters. The main GOAT is decently enjoyable and charismatic, and almost brings a Miles Morales-like energy to the story, with the voice actor really giving it his all. The Panther Lady has the best arc in the movie, even though it's not really that good of an arc. But does this movie need good arcs? Kind of. The weak story really drags this movie down, but I feel like the characters and visuals almost completely make up for it. The villain is super cool and charismatic, and I absolutely bought his skill and how much of a threat he is in the court, but he definitely needed more screen time. It feels like the first confrontation with him in the championship game are the only times we get to see him in person. Some of the other characters in the main team can get some laughs here and there, particularly the proboscis monkey coach and the giraffe who's also a rapper. That's another thing. I love how this movie shows that any celebrity beef about anything these days is dealt with through rap disses, even by celebrities who aren't even rappers. But I would definitely say check this out. Between this and K-pop Demon Hunters, I think Sony is really going to be on the top of the animation industry by the end of the year.
Oh, it's like pain, death, destruction, but with pigs.
Lord of the Flies is a crazy movie. This is the oldest movie I saw this month, made in 1963, but I think this movie is great. As an adaptation of Lord of the Flies, it has to be. It follows the book almost exactly, only adding and taking out a couple things here and there. The boys' descent into insanity is honestly terrifying, and the scene where they dance around the fire perfectly encapsulates that. Like, the camera work in that scene, and just in this movie in general, is some of the best I've ever seen. Outside of that scene, they do tons of other close-up shots of the kids that really allow them to shine as actors. The acting ranges from okay to pretty decent, which is great for child actors. Yeah, it's basically Lord of the Flies, a tale of how human nature, and specifically in kids, will turn them insane when left unchecked. The characters are great as well, and I love the friendship Ralph and Piggy develop over time. When you take into account that Ralph was mean to Piggy at the beginning, it makes their eventual bond really wholesome. There is one thing I genuinely dislike about this movie, and that's the ending. When adults finally show up to rescue the kids, everyone was about to kill Ralph, and then they all start crying, but then they play happy, triumphant music over it, as if it's like a super happy, triumphant moment, but it's not. The boys were at their lowest point in their sanity. They'll probably all have psychological trauma issues after they get back to England. Do you think that warrants extreme major key in the score? On top of that, I think the rest of the climax is honestly pretty drawn out and could have been like 70% shorter, but I still like this movie overall.
Long ago, the world was full of magic.
Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets sure is more Harry Potter. I don't know, I don't have a lot to say about this one. The phrase more Harry Potter really does just perfectly sum up this movie. I like the new characters, I guess. The new celebrity Professor Twist villain character, who my dad thought was played by Ewan McGregor, was really funny. Dobby was actually not really that funny. The voice change on some of the child actors was a little jarring, but works fine. The mystery and climax are fun. This movie is funnier than the first movie. This movie is better in general than the first movie. I'll be watching all the Harry Potter movies at some point, but this is probably the longest segment I'll ever have on one of them. Sorry, but Harry Potter is just really self-explanatory.
The real treasure was the friends we made along the way.
The Goonies is kind of the wildest movie I've ever seen, for two different reasons. And the biggest one to me is the PG rating. Like, this movie has tons of swearing, including multiple uses of the S, B, and A words, a teenage girl accidentally kissing a 12-year-old boy thinking he was someone else, and implied sexual assault, and it's rated the same thing as something like Trolls. That's insane to think about. The other reason this movie is so wild is that it has a bunch of movie stars who apparently all got their start here. Josh Brolin, Sean Astin, Jeff Cohen, and Corey Feldman were all in this as kids. Look at this guy and try to imagine that he would play Thanos 40 years in the future. That's insane. Yeah, this one's pretty simple too. Every single character is funny, especially Chunk, and I like how he gets separated from the group and befriends this offensive handicapped stereotype. He's great too. I mean, I don't like that he's an offensive handicapped stereotype, but just as a character, he is enjoyable. Like, when he ripped his shirt off to reveal a Superman t-shirt, you knew things were about to get real. Also, there's a trio of Italian-American mafia stereotypes, one of whom is played by Joe Pantoliano, and they're pretty funny. Again, I don't like that they're Italian-American mafia stereotypes, but just as characters, they are enjoyable. The romance subplot doesn't even involve the main character, it's about the main character's brother, but it's actually surprisingly well developed for a movie like this. I'm not saying it's actually good, but come on, it's the Goonies. Some of the stuff in the middle feels a little meandering and pointless, but it's still fine because of the great characters. Yeah, this movie is wild and crazy, and between this and Back to the Future, I think it's safe to say they just don't make them like they used to.
This right here is my favorite thing, ever. In the history of forever.
Hoppers was way better than the trailers made it look. This taught me not to trust Pixar trailers anymore, besides with Elio. This is very much offbeat for Pixar, which might be a good thing since what they've been putting out recently hasn't really been working, financially or otherwise. This feels like more like a modern DreamWorks film than Pixar, with the insane premise and... Actually, I guess that's it. But yeah, I think this is definitely a step in the right direction for Pixar, because it's great. The main character is so endearing and sympathetic, but half because she's so feisty and annoying, in a good way, and her character design only adds to this. I actually have a character in one of my books who's a lot like her, and you can bet I'll be drawing inspiration from this gal. I think the second act where she's inside a robot beaver for a while is kinda lame. Like, I think the beaver's character designs aren't nearly as memorable as the humans in this movie, but it's still fine. I like the King Beaver Mabel befriends well enough, and some of the other characters can get chuckles here and there, but the real star of the show for me here is the mayor character who Mabel hates because he wants to build a highway over the park that she and her grandma used to visit. He's set up as just any other scumbag right-wing politician villain character, who always inevitably ends up as a terrible Trump caricature. But he starts out presented that way, and then just gets talked about like he's a pure, irredeemably evil person. And when he shows up again in the final act, where Mabel realizes that just because he's doing one thing you don't like doesn't make him completely evil. It's a message that America really needs to hear, and I'm glad that Disney finally let a movie that wasn't completely left-wing actually get made. It's kind of a miracle, and absolutely makes this movie for me. Oh, and the final act. I won't even describe everything in it, but it's completely insane and kind of doesn't fit the tone of the rest of the movie, but it's also like the funniest scene in any Pixar movie, so I'm glad it's there. But yeah, the middle chunk is really dragging, and you kind of just want Mabel to get back to her human body. But there are a few good bits in the middle, like when she destroys the frequency tower, or when she attends the council meeting and accidentally kills the butterfly queen, but it's mostly just kind of okay. But all in all, I definitely recommend this movie. If this video is published before it's out of theaters, this is your sign to go support Pixar's actually good original movies.